At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
Happy Independence Day, everyone. Thank you for streaming into Freetext. We promise we got a power-packed episode lined up for you.
And for this super special day, we have a super special show especially lined up for you. And we call it the Azadi Countdown.
So here is what you will learn by the end of the show. Our top 10 achievements in these 73 long years. More than our achievements, you will appreciate the journey we've all traveled together. Our position when we started and where we are today. How we compare to the rest of the world. Along with a healthy dose of stats all along that will truly make you feel proud or at least acknowledge what we are capable of. So on this note, let's dive right in.
Number 10 on our Azadi Countdown is our defense. Honestly, hand on heart, no one can claim that we are a truly modern military force due to a series of lethargic and egocentric leaderships since independence. However, despite this, we are still one of the most formidable fighting forces known to humankind. And since 1947, we have grown from a force of little under 4 lakh personnel to a massive military of nearly 14 lakh active and 2 lakh reserve personnel, 4,400 plus combat tanks, 1,300 plus armored carriers, 2,100 plus aircrafts with 500 plus fighter jets, 266 multiple launch rocket systems and 285 Navy vessels, including 1 aircraft carrier, 10 destroyers and 16 submarines. All of these and much more makes us the world's 4th most powerful force across air, sea and land, only behind Russia, China and the US. Elite Force Unit Marcos is considered to be the most lethal special forces team in the world. Our defense manufacturing, though, has always been a subject of wide-ranging criticism, from being the only nation in top 5 to not to have a defense manufacturing infrastructure at home. In fact, our only homegrown fighter aircraft Tejas took 33 long years before it was finally inducted in the Indian Air Force in 2016. There have been a number of attempts in the past to change this, and hopefully the most recent announcement of listing 100 plus items as a negative import will be the breakthrough moment we so badly needed. These include everything from basics like a bulletproof jacket to high-end missiles and even the submarines. Now that is indeed a big move, and we truly hope that the Indian Defence Forces in a few decades from now will turn into a highly self-sufficient military and feature much higher in the world order.
On number 9 Archie Countdown में Space Technologies. Wrecked by a bloody partition and torn to the core by a blood-sucking British rule meant we had barely enough food on the table, let alone a space program. So it was only in 1962 when, under the leadership of Vikram Sarabhai, we founded our first space agency called, it wasn't Akshay Kumar's ISRO. It was called INSCOPAR, or Indian National Committee for Space Research, and was created as part of Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. This agency was then replaced by ISRO in 1969 and started with some really frugal yet effective ways of working. In fact, our great scientists like Abdul Kalam and Vikram Sarabhai would routinely be seen working like car and bike mechanics. Our initial satellites were brought on bullock carts, and some of them were launched using second-hand cars. In fact, some of our rockets were also carried on bicycles. Little could one imagine that in less than 12 years, we will have our first fully indigenous satellite in 1980. And since then, we've executed 100 spacecraft missions, 70 launch missions, 9 student satellites, 269 foreign satellites for 32 countries, including a mission to Mars and the Moon. All of this, despite our budgets being 3% of NASA and less than 25% of other space agencies like the Europe and Russia. Truly, ISRO is amongst the brightest jewels in our crown.
From Jai Jawan to Jai Vigyan to Jai Kisan, number 8 on our list is India's agriculture. The partition of India brought several miseries to both nations, but the one that impacted us most severely was hunger, with our largest wheat-producing farms going to West Pakistan and rice-producing lands going to East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. Before independence, the famine of 1943 had already pushed us into widespread starvation, but the impact of the partition was definitely a blow to our agriculture. The situation was dire that our Prime Minister Nehru back in the day had asked people to eat sweet potatoes instead of wheat and rice to satisfy their carb requirements. The problems continued, but with sustained efforts, most notably Operation Flood under Dr. Kurian and Green Revolution under Dr. M.S. Swaminathan, along with several other initiatives, we today produce well over we need and also boast of some of the largest food grain reserves in the world. We are today the world's second largest food producer, only behind China. Our agriculture output has increased by 5 times since 1950, from 50 million tons to 275 million tons in 2016. The average yield per hectare has also increased by nearly 5 times during this period. With over 150 plus million tons in reserves, we have enough reserves to manage about 6 months of supplies. This by no way means there are no problems. We are still plagued with heartbreaking news of regular farmer suicides and malnourishment, despite producing more than we need and even exporting to the world. But despite all our problems, the fact is that as a nation which once suffered widespread starvation is now a top exporter of most food items is nothing short of a miracle.
So who do we have on number 7? Whoa, it's Bollywood and the larger Indian film industry. If there is one industry that gets celebrated and beaten up in equal measure, it is the Indian film industry. Most of all, Bollywood. From the first ever silent Indian movie made in 1898 named The Flower of Persia to Alamara, our first movie with dialogues made in 1931, we've certainly come a long way. And today we produce more than 1800 movies in 20 plus languages, the highest in the world. Estimated average of 1.4 crore Indians go to the cinema each day, and over 220 crore tickets are sold annually, again the highest in the world, generating over 20,000 crores in box office revenues alone, and employing nearly 10 lakh people directly or indirectly. Nepotism or hard work, Bollywood or the Indian film industry has established itself as a top content creator in the world, and all of us must feel really proud that it belongs to us.
Number 6 on our list is our economy. Victimized, suppressed and looted, we Indians have been subject to and have overcome some of the worst atrocities inflicted on any civilization. Just so you know, when the British came to our country, our contribution to the global trade was estimated to be over 24%, arguably the highest at that time. However, 200 years later, when they left behind a nation in absolute dire straits, with the contribution to global GDP reduced to less than 3.5% in 1947. And despite losing both our trading arms in the form of Pakistan and Bangladesh, a crippling poverty, a privileged elite blocking all reforms, coupled with rampant casteism, we have now become the world's third largest economy on a purchasing power parity basis. We're contributing to 7.3% of global GDP. We also have the 5th largest foreign reserves in the world, which is more than the combined reserves of the US and the UK. We're also lifting 44 people out of poverty every minute. We recommend that you watch our episode Bursting the Global Myths on India's Poverty to get a full perspective.
Coming in at number 5 is Indian power sector or Bijli. You know, our problem is real when Shah Rukh Khan, at the peak of his stardom, stars in a movie based on a central plot of bringing electricity to an Indian village. The situation of our country at the time of independence was actually much worse than what we saw in Swadesh. To get a full sense of the magnitude of this problem, let's understand how big is India in terms of villages, towns and cities. So we have about 6,50,000 villages, of which 5,90,000 are habitable or livable. We also have 4,000 cities and towns. In any case, what you need to know is that at the time of independence, not one of these villages had active power supply. And this was a state of British rule or administration, as we like to call it. So next time when you're driving around Lutyens, Delhi and clicking pictures at the India Gate, think twice before heaping praise on the British for their vision, quality and architecture. Now coming back to our problems. The matter of fact is that we were handed over a country in complete shambles. And not knowing where to start from, the governments back in the day fully kicked out all private players controlling 56% of the power sector and distributed this between central and state governments. The entire journey is highly fascinating and will be an episode in itself. But as we stand today, India is the world's third largest power producing and consuming nation. As of 2019, We are a power surplus nation by 4.6%. We are even exporting power to countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan. And the final village to be electrified was Leasing in Manipur with about 70 people and 13 families. While we are 100% electrified, we are still far from being 24/7 power supply nation, which was an ambition the government planned to accomplish in 2019 March with mixed success. But even to have come this far, all on our own, is no mean feat, and each one of us has had a big contribution in making this happen.
Next up on our countdown at number 4 is Indian Pharma. At the time of independence, the cost of drugs in India were amongst the highest in the world and were almost entirely controlled by the Western pharma companies. This was a result of laws implemented by the British to prevent Indian companies from creating cheaper alternatives to Western inventions and impose expensive drugs on the people of India. Well, this continued till about 1970 when the government of the day introduced the Indian Patents Act, which was truly game-changing and set the Indian pharma space in motion. A number of amendments have been made to this act, some positive and some under pressure from global lobbies. However, with time, our pharma companies have developed the muscle to overcome this, and we are now the world's third largest by volume and 10th by revenue. We fulfill about 50% of the worldwide demand for vaccines. 40% of the generic drugs in the US are Indian made. 60% of all antiviral drugs worldwide are made in India. Annual revenues of Indian pharma companies today tops about $50 billion or 350,000 crore rupees. With 3,000 plus pharma companies and 10,500 plus manufacturing facilities, we are employing 30 lakh plus people directly into this sector. In fact, many predict that due to the current COVID crisis and China's perception, India is poised to become the pharmacy of the world.
Number 3 on our Azadi countdown is Indian manufacturing. Some history here first. So during the Maratha rule in early 1700, Indian manufacturing accounted for 20% of the world's total produce. And during the Mughal rule, India had actually become the world's largest economy, ahead of both China and Western Europe at that time. Our top industries included textile, shipbuilding and steel. But all this had to change as the British took control of Bengal, which was economically the most prosperous territory during the Mughal India. Following this, the British first banned gold exports, and India soon was only exporting raw material and importing finished goods from Europe and UK. Soon, from 20% of the world's production, we declined to 2% in 1900. And even during such difficult circumstances, our small traders and manufacturers were exploited by draconian taxes and bans of any kind on local manufacturing without the empire's permission. Now that you have a context of our starting points in 1947 and the kind of crippling circumstances we had to endure, let's find out where we stand today. We are today the world's 5th largest manufacturing nation. Our popular imports include mineral fuel oils, gems and precious metals, iron and steel, computers and so on. We are also the world's largest two-wheeler maker and exporter. In 2020, we have now become the world's 2nd largest manufacturers of cell phones and related parts. Although Indian manufacturing is severely criticized for lack of innovation and being more of an assembly line, the fact that against all odds we've come this far is nothing short of a miracle. And from here on, we can sure race ahead into a massive global manufacturing powerhouse.
Number 2 on our countdown is Indian IT. Of the many evils of the British Raj, the one and perhaps the only advantage India gained by the end of it was a deep-rooted English language awareness amongst a large population and willingness to learn and ace English seen with almost everyone. Well, little did we know that this will turn out to be a massive economic boon and make us the world's most sought-after IT hub. Computer science was the only area where we perhaps had a level playing field, as the entire world came to grips with it at around the same time, with US clearly in the lead. IT and BPO companies entirely transformed the nation, introduced prosperity, affluence, quality of life, parties and so much else like never before. And suddenly cities like Bangalore, Gurgaon, Noida, Pune, Hyderabad appeared more attractive than the established metros like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai and Kolkata. Let's try and understand where it all began. TCS or Tata Consultancy Services was India's first IT company created in 1977. It started with humble projects like building punched card system for its sister company Tata Steel and an inter-branch reconciliation system for the Central Bank of India. But it was in 1975 that TCS made significant international inroads by developing a trading system Semcom for Swiss, and in the same time went to automate the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. But it was in 1981 when Infosys, the real manifestation of Indian middle class dream, was born in Pune by Narayan Murthy and 6 engineers with a capital of about 15,000 rupees. Since then, Infosys has gone to become one of the largest, most respected and profitable IT corporation in the world. Like Infosys, a number of other companies like Mindtree, HCL, Satyam and hundreds and thousands of more have emerged, turning India into an IT powerhouse. As we speak, the Indian IT is a 7 lakh crore industry with a combined market cap of over $1 trillion or 70 lakh crore rupees, employing 43 lakh people directly in India and nearly 5 lakh more around the world, especially in the US and Europe. Beyond financial prowess and balance sheets, Indians are also responsible for some of the most landmark inventions in the IT space, which include email by V.A. Shiva Ayyadurai, the Pentium microchip by Vinod Dham, USB by Ajay Bhatt, and fiber optics co-invented by Narendra Singh Kapani.
And finally, number 1 on our Independence Day countdown are Indian startups, the real engines that are leading us into the future. Completely free of all colonial overhang and daring to escape the safe job and settle life mindsets, we Indians and in large numbers have decided to take charge of our own destiny and embarked on a massive startup revolution which is shaping our nation like never before. Today we have startups across the spectrum, from clean energy, sanitation, healthcare, blockchain, e-commerce, artificial intelligence, electric vehicles, e-governance and so on. The space has grown so much that today we are the world's 3rd largest startup ecosystem, eclipsing the likes of Europe, Japan, UK and so on. And as we speak, our startup ecosystem comprises of over 9,300 startups, 390 VCs, 1,100 angels, 24 unicorns and 300 plus deals in 2019 alone, with over 3,50,000 crores invested in 2019. There's more, wait. Indian startups today employ over 60,000 people, which will increase to 4 lakh direct and 16 lakh indirect jobs by 2025, with investments of close to 28 lakh crores from around the world.
Well, it's not time for chest thumping, but a moment of acknowledgement of what we are capable of doing, and not to be overly self-critical of ourselves by comparing ourselves with the rest of the world. To give you more perspective, take an example of US, which got its independence in 1776, but it took them 89 years to ban the human slavery, about 94 years before the black people finally got the voting rights, and in case of women and children, this took them more than a century and a half.
And we should simply stop comparing ourselves with pocket-sized countries like Israel, Switzerland, Singapore and other European nations. Some of them are smaller than even our Indian districts, both in terms of size and population. From celebrating our success to critically examining issues that affect all of us, at Freetext, we provide you with perspective that's fact-based on a wide range of subjects. Please do take out time and watch our analysis on Indian sports and Indian startups. Although for today, that's all we have. Once again, thanks for joining. My name is Prabhu. God bless you all and Jai Hind.
That's all we have for you today. Hope you enjoyed it. I am Sushil. Wish you all a very happy Independence Day. Jai Hind.